Welcome. Today is the 15th day of Tammuz. We're starting a new week, the week of Parshat Pinchas, and it's also the 21st of July. And we're going to look a little bit at Pinchas' story, the total story, not just the story here. So there are two places that we need to see him, where he's mentioned explicitly. The first one is here in our Parsha, the first reading, and this is why the Parsha is called Pinchas, after him. And the second one will be in Joshua chapter 22. So let's see first of all what we have here. Pinchas, the son of Elazar, the son of Aaron the priest, diverted my anger from the Israelites by zealously avenging me among them. I did not destroy the Israelites because of my zeal, says God. This is Numbers 25, verse 10 and 11. Then verse 12, therefore say to the Israelites, God is saying, I hereby give him my covenant of peace. Now what does that mean, that he's giving him a covenant of peace? So the first meaning is, this covenant will be for him and for his descendants after him, an eternal covenant of priesthood, because he was zealous for his God and atoned for the Israelites. What did Pinchas do? Pinchas killed the man who was nameless at the end of last week's Torah portion. And in this week's portion we learned that his name was Zimri ben Salu. He killed him and the Midianite woman that he was copulating with in front of the tent of meeting. And because he was a very important person, he was a king of his tribe, the tribe of Shimon, they were afraid to do something to him. And Pinchas did. And it was his act, God says, that directed the zeal, meaning the zealotry, the anger that God had at the people for being promiscuous with the Midianite women. He directed it to one person. And then all the anger was directed into one place. And this is very important to remember, that Bilam was trying to find the moment when God would be angry each day, and to use that moment to curse the Jewish people. But we said that during all those days, God was not angry at all. What Pinchas did was even more. By the way, Pinchas in English is called Phineas. I didn't know that until like 2 years ago. But Pinchas is Phineas, I guess. If there's something wrong with that, let me know. So Pinchas, what he did was the opposite. He took all the anger and he focused it, concentrated it into one person. Therefore, everything else was dropped, and the plague that was plaguing the people stopped. And by doing that, God commends him, and he gives him his covenant of peace. So we asked, what is this covenant of peace? The first thing that it says is that he's now going to become a priest. Now that's a question that a lot of people ask, but isn't he the son of Elazar, the son of Aaron? Isn't he a priest anyway? So the answer is that when the priests were anointed, only Aaron and his 4 sons were anointed. None of the other offspring, meaning in this case Elazar had another child, Pinchas, or if the others had any children, any other descendants, none of those third generation were anointed with them. It was only those 5. And then we remember that Nadav and Avihu died, so there were only 3 priests, Aaron, Elazar, and Itamar. And because Pinchas was already born, he was 12 years old or 13 years old when the priests were anointed, he wasn't anointed among them. So he was actually just like an Israelite. He wasn't supposed to be a priest. Now God gives a special declaration, a special decree, that Pinchas, for his act, is now going to be appointed as a priest as well. Even though, again, in the first round of anointing, he could not be counted because he was already born. So that's the first meaning of giving him the covenant of peace, to make him into a priest. Why that? Because the whole point of a priesthood is to make peace between a person and God. That the priest in that sense is sort of like an intermediary who takes the sacrifice and brings it on the altar, and in that way helps along the connection between the person and God. But it's not that simple, because it's not enough for God to agree that Pinchas is a good guy. For priesthood to work, the people on the other end have to be willing to accept the same thing. If they don't accept the same thing, if they don't want him as the priest, if they don't want him as the one facilitating the relationship, then it won't work. Not only that, but actually the priest is much more of a, we can call it a chaperone of the person coming to bring the sacrifice, much less so of God. And so, and the way that we show this is that we give them part of the sacrifice, we give them part of our earnings, and so on. And it has to be someone that we trust. But Pinchas was not trusted by the people. The whole reason we said that he was given this covenant by God was because he killed Zimri ben Salu and his Midianite girlfriend. But the people didn't see it this way. Some of them thought that he had acted, it was zealotry. Because look at Moses, he didn't do anything, Aaron didn't do anything, nobody else did anything. So, Pinchas, where did you get this idea that you can kill a king? Where do you get this regicide in your blood? What is this? This is not the way that a Jew should act. And so, talk to him, talk to Zimri, what are you doing? And so on. Convince him that this is the wrong thing to do, and so on. But he goes right away and he kills him. So he was not seen as a man of peace among the Jewish people, among the Israelites. He had to wait until Joshua 22, many, many years later, about 50 years later, about 40 years later, actually 30 years later. And I'll read to you a little bit. I think it's even less than 30 years. It's actually probably around 14 years later, but in any case, it was many years later. Joshua 22:9, so the Reubenites, the Gadites, and half the tribe of Manasseh left the Israelites at Shiloh in the land of Canaan. And remember, in Shiloh they had erected the tabernacle after all the years that they had taken it apart and put it back together when they were wandering in the wilderness. Now they had a permanent location for the tabernacle. They had not yet built the temple. That would take another 400 years. But now they're in the land of Canaan. And one of the things that happened was that these three tribes, Reuben, Gad, and half of Manasseh, which was a very big tribe, wanted their inheritance in the land to be on the eastern side of the Jordan. And Moses agreed on condition that they would be the scouts leading the camp into the western side of the Jordan, and that they would be the first ones to fight and help their brothers conquer the land of Canaan. But when the conquering was finished, they were sent back. So they made their way back to the land of Gilad, the land of their own holding, which they had acquired by God's command through Moses. When they came to the region of the Jordan and the land of Canaan, the Reubenites and the Gadites and the half-tribe of Manasseh built an altar there by the Jordan, a great conspicuous altar. Now this is a terrible thing, because they just came back from Shiloh where the altar is. How can they build another one? A report reached the Israelites. The Reubenites, the Gadites, and the half-tribe of Manasseh have built an altar opposite the land of Canaan, in the region of the Jordan across from the Israelites. When the Israelites heard this, the whole community of the Israelites assembled at Shiloh to make war on them. So this was about to be the first civil war, and they were going to destroy them, because what are you doing? You're creating another altar. There can be only one altar. But first the Israelites sent the priest Pinchas, son of Elazar, to the Reubenites, the Gadites, and half-tribe of Manasseh in the land of Gilad. accompanied by 10 chieftains, or kings, one king from each of the tribal families of Israel, every one of them a family head among the contingents of Israel. When they came there, they spoke to them as follows: Thus said all of God's community, what is this treachery that you have committed this day against the God of Israel, turning away from God, building yourselves an altar, and rebelling this day against God? Is the sin of Peor, which brought a plague, so they're mentioning the same sin that we just saw at the end of last week's Torah portion, upon God's community, such a small thing to us? We have not purified ourselves from it to this very day, and now you would turn away from God? If you rebel against God today, tomorrow the divine wrath will be directed at the whole community of Israel. If it is because the land we're holding is impure, and so on, and they give all kinds of arguments. Finally, they give them a chance to speak. And these three tribes, they answer, God the eternal God surely knows, and Israel too shall know. If we acted in rebellion or in treachery against God, do not vindicate us this day. If we built an altar to turn away from God, if it was built to offer burnt offerings or grain offerings upon it, or to present sacrifices of well-being upon it, may God be the one to demand a reckoning. We did this only out of concern that in the time to come, your children might say to our children, what have you to do with the eternal, the God of Israel? Because they're afraid that they will be castigated because they're living on the other side of the Jordan. They'll be forgotten as tribes of Israel. So God has made the Jordan a boundary between you and us. O Reubenites and Gadites, you have no share in God. They say, so will your children say. Thus your children might prevent our children from worshiping God in Shiloh. So we decided to provide a witness for ourselves by building an altar not for burnt offerings or other sacrifices, but as a witness and so on. And when the priest Pinchas and the chieftains of the community, the heads of the contingents of Israel who were with him, heard the explanation, they approved. And Pinchas said to them, now we know that God is in our midst, since you have not committed such treachery against God. You have indeed saved the Israelites from punishment by God. And Pinchas and the chieftains returned from the Reubenites and the Gadites in the land of Gilead to the Israelites in the land of Canaan and gave them their report. So Pinchas, a few dozen years, maybe 14, 15 years later, he brings peace to the entire people. And that was really when he was accepted as a priest. It's very interesting. In the Talmud, in Zvachim 101b, there's two opinions when he became a priest. One says that he became a priest right away in our parsha, when God gives him this covenant of peace. The other opinion by Rav Ashi says that really this waited until he really brought peace between Jews. But that's not the end of Pinchas's story. The sages tell us that Pinchas is the same person as Eliyahu. What do they mean by this? Eliyahu was about 300 years later. What do they mean by this? No, much more than 300, about 450 years later. So what do they mean by this even? How could he be the same person? It could be that it's in reincarnation. It could be that he had some miraculously long life. Not clear. In any case, the sages say he's the same person, and he is considered to be the herald of the Messiah. He's considered to be the one who comes before the Mashiach comes and tells us that now is the time. The way we understand this today is that when you have a revelation of Elijah, you have a revelation of Eliyahu, who is Pinchas, what you have is a sudden, tremendous insight into the world, into Torah, into your understanding of things. And when that happens, that is the heralding of the coming of Messiah, because everybody will have some kind of new insight that suddenly will tell them, yes, I need to live according to Torah. Yes, I need Torah in my life. I need this connection to God. And that will be the ultimate peacemaking of Elijah, to make peace between, like a priest, peace between a person, the Torah, and God. So with that, we end today. I hope to see you tomorrow. Have a great day. Bye-bye.